It's Vancouver's podcast on the Cannabis Podcast Network.
Today, I am absolutely privileged to have Mike Schwarz, who is here from BC, a BC entrepreneur from Squamish. He's going to tell us a little bit about his company, but he came from UBC Saunders School of Business with a Bachelor of Commerce. And he's been self-employed working on internet startups for over 18 years, has a rich history of successful .com exits, including Club Vibes, Tech Vibes, a massive tech conference, which I think is actually the title, the Massive Tech Conference, Discover Vancouver, clubzone.com, and he's actually now into a brand and business called My Zone, which for those of you who joined us, we were just talking about the impact of pandemics on the event industry and how it's going to shape things up. But Mike himself loves to travel and spend several months per year on the road working remotely. And he was recognized in 2005 as a BIV Top 30 Under 30. So, Mike, thanks for joining us here in Cannabis Podcast. We're excited to have you.
Top 30 Under 30. That's back when I had hair.
Absolutely. Well, we all have the back when we had stories, so not to worry. Hey, tell us a little bit about My Zone. I guess I said a little bit about your .com experiences, but what's your actual entrepreneurial journey? When did it start, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, it started right out of university. I took a job for 6 months selling life insurance and mutual funds, and I realized I wasn't cut out for employment. Far too argumentative with my bosses. Reed, if you're listening in, sorry. I just was always thinking outside the box and trying to do things the way that I wasn't told to do them. And so I started reading all these magazines at the time. The internet was exploding. I was reading like Profit and Fortune and all these sort of .com things. Billionaires were blowing up, coming out of nowhere. And that time, I mean, you could launch a pet food brand and be a billionaire. So I'm just like, I have to leave what I'm doing and just do everything and jump into the internet. And so I started out by like teaching myself how to build a GeoCities website. I taught myself HTML and Flash. I was doing Flash animations. I took a course at Cap College in North Vancouver. It was called the Microsoft Certified System Engineer Program, MCSE. It was the big rage back then. You know, you spend 20, 25 grand and you take these IT courses for a year and you come out and get a fancy job and you're in the .com world. Well, I went into that path. At the time, I started a company. It was called exclusive-promotions.net. And my vision was that I gave myself some career coaching as like, well, if I want to start a .com, where do I want to go? I mean, you could do anything back then. It was the Wild West. I'm like, well, I love going to clubs. I love drinking alcohol. I'm single. I love music and DJs. I'm like, and the business model just came along. It's like, well, let's build a nightlife information guide. We hate waiting in lineups. We didn't know how to get into clubs for free. I'm tired of paying cover charges. So that's how we started it. And so I went back to Cap College. I took this MCSE program. Well, within 2 months I was working part-time on my business, the business really started to take off. And I actually partnered with Joel Weinmaster in North Vancouver. I dropped out of that program after 2 months. Fortunately, I was paying in installments, so I didn't lose the full 20 grand, only lost the first 5 grand. And yeah, we started clubvibes.com together. That was probably like 1999, 2000-ish. And yeah, that was our first project. I haven't stopped being a .com entrepreneur since that day.
Mm-hmm. And so segue into, I mentioned a few things along the way, but segue into where you are today. I've had the privilege of talking, so I know you have a remote team working globally, and you've niched out in the event industry.
Yeah, I don't think there's a clean segue. I mean, unless I bypass the sort of schizophrenic mind map that got me to here, like, okay, let's just fast forward 15 years of entrepreneurial madness and ups and downs. We launched My Zone maybe 7 or so years ago. And that's where we kind of had a collapse of the nightlife industry, and then we came into My Zone, and that's where we started. Instead of trying to build like a software as a service platform where we were just flipping switches and collecting residual revenue, we just started trading time for money to build a sustainable platform that we could go out and take additional sort of moonshot strategies from there. So it came from a place of collapse. And so we started a web design, graphic design software development agency. We spun off Club Zone Tickets, turned into TicketZone.com. So we spun off a primary ticketing company. We had a printing division within there, which is called My Zone Printing, and we've expanded that into a wide range of event-related printing services, ticketing, printing, marketing, and development. So there's now 4 divisions within My Zone, and the overarching focus up until this coronavirus has been helping the event producers operate more efficiently. So we typically meet with an event. We'll find out what their specific pain points are. And because we've worked with thousands of clients in the industry, we know how to fix those problems. So it may be as simple as helping optimize their website for e-commerce conversion rates. It might be switching over their primary ticketing or setting up an admission strategy. For clients like Glow Gardens, which we helped take global last year, it was everything from branding to marketing to PR to ticketing, admissions to printing, to every so it really depends on the client and what their needs are. I have a little promo video on our website. Like, we help some clients just get 500 Tyvek wristbands, and other clients we help them, roll out globally.
Everything.
So, yeah.
So how do you identify an ideal client? Because I'm envisioning, and I mean more the comprehensive client servicing, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there with great ideas of events that they would love to put on. What's the genius, do you think, behind the person with an idea versus who will be able to commercialize it and be a ongoing client?
I think like the best client for me and the most successful event producers, I think, are the ones that are really collaborative and open to change and ego-free and like to listen and believe in hiring good people and getting out of the way. An event is really like a startup, and startups take, strong leadership and great team building and all the right skills and communication platforms and accountability systems. And I think there's a lot of event promoters out there that take it like it's a sort of a lifestyle business. It's a for fun thing. They don't necessarily take it seriously. Kind of like the dot-com startups in 99, 2000. There was a lot of crap in the mix that weren't following solid business principles, and those people kind of got weeded out. There's a lot of attrition in the events industry. So I like to look for people that are established, people that have made it through their first couple of years, that are ego-free, hungry to learn and grow, and respectful and ambitious. We try to avoid the ones that are, that think they know everything, because they'll usually be gone. You have to adapt. Like, the industry is changing so fast, not just from a technology and a marketing perspective. I mean, if you just look back 10, 15 years ago, it used to be that flyering and phone calls was like how they did business, and there was radio and TV, and then suddenly you got into Facebook and social, and even the tools within social are evolving so quickly. So any promoter today who thinks they know everything, that they're gone in 3 years. They have to be humble and hungry. And it's also, things adapt very quickly in terms of what the consumers want. Like, if you look now, like this huge surge in the last couple of years of these experiential Christmas events, well, we've already seen them transform. And based on the surveys and data we collect, we know that what worked last year is not going to work next year. So you have to be very responsive, agile, adaptive to survive in the events industry.
Well, and that's a good point as far as being data driven. I mean, what do you see as the emerging trends, even if we take the short term in the next 2 years? Hard to ask the question today versus 2 months ago. It might be a completely different answer.
Emerging trends. If you're in the events industry, run for the hills.
Sorry, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's tragic.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, right now, so the international conferences are the first to go. Anything that's involved, like, Facebook's FA conference shut down. There was, I read a news article about a week ago, and that's old news now in the coronavirus world. That was 260 conferences were shut down in Europe within a couple of days. So all of the major international conferences are pretty much shut down, and the Olympics hasn't shut down yet, but it probably will, or it'll be moved to TV only. So that's the first wave of events that are collapsing. The localized events, we're not seeing a collapse yet, but it's watch the Joe Rogan podcast. I think it's happening shortly. But what's definitely happening is those events are trimming budgets. they are being very careful where they spend, which I think is smart. But what I'm seeing a trend right now, a really interesting one, is I've had a lot of clients, they've come to me and they're asking, how do we prepare for this virus? What should we do? And I've had another group of clients that are coming to me just telling me the answer, which I'm telling to the other clients that don't yet know, is you need to find like which parts of your business are virus proof. So one of the best strategies I recommend is that people move their business online. So we're seeing that in the conference space where people are still holding the conference, but now they're charging for it and they're making it like an online e-learning experience, and people are just not gathering. So if you're an education-based conference, you can still push forward just moving those conferences online. And I've got another a client who does craft shows around Vancouver and Edmonton, and I was recommending for her is like, let's find a way to push your products online so people can actually purchase the products without having to go to the show. So there's different ways. Like for us, for our business, our pivoting strategy is really just tackle another industry temporarily and try and find an industry that is synergistic with events. So we're going to start targeting cannabis, alcohol, and potential iOS gaming, places where there's similar demographics. Like we have huge databases of customers that have gone to like Glow Christmas events. So we have a lot of experience working with moms with young children that have been to those events. So I think that the smart event producers right now will look to pivot quickly for the short term. I think in 3 to 6 months, things will bounce back fine. But if they don't react, if they don't get into e-commerce or get into e-learning or find an industry to support, other than that, they may be out of business in 6 months.
Wow. I love your wording on what aspects of your business are virus proof, right? I can't help but bring to forefront. My girlfriends posted on Facebook the other day. They said something like, so excited to have jazz hands. I've been waiting for this opportunity to, be able to say hi and shake hands with jazz hands. And of course, I'm the opposite. My whole thing is, oh my God, we're human beings, right? We need the physical presence and the physical energy of both, combination of both digital and physical. How do we maintain our humanity in proximity to people at events and stay kind of virus proof at the same time? Is there a magic?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real the number one solution they're recommending for this virus that I don't think they can stop, and the epidemiologist on the Joe Rogan podcast agrees, like this is going everywhere. And the most important thing we can do is, they just call it social distancing, is you can't stop it, you can just slow it down. And events are the exact opposite of what we need. So I unfortunately believe that events should be more proactive in shutting down. I think that the government response is often quite delayed, and it's up to us, small business owners, to be proactive with that. But interesting, a friend of mine who's in Vancouver, originally from Beijing, he actually launched Club Zone with me in Beijing, and we went to the Olympics in 2008 together. And he was telling me he still has a lot of friends back in China, and what they're doing for social activities right now while in mass quarantine is actually what you and I are doing, except with a lot more videos. Is his friends are having like these whiskey and poker nights, and they've got, they're all using Zoom video, and they're all just chatting and socializing. So I think if you look at the share price for Zoom, there's a reason why it's up like 60% in the last month. Is there's a few players in the space that are related to stay at home or delivery of food or the Netflixes, the Peloton stocks. How do we stay connected in this day and age? It's sad, but this is it. It's going to be it's going to be staying at home. It's going to be not going to kids' birthday parties. Kids are going to get pulled out of school. The big events are going to fall, and we're just going to have to connect through video conferencing until things quiet down.
Do you have an estimated timeline based on what you've been listening to?
3 to 6 months. So I think that any events that are in sort of Q1, Q2 are big trouble. Q3, possible Q4 should be pretty safe. I'm not an expert. I'm just sort of going with what I've been reading online. So I'd like to think that the pushing events back into fall is a safe bet. I've had quite a few clients that have pushed their fall events even into spring out of concern that it may drag on longer.
Right.
It's one thing to say too, like we're going to have the virus is going to slow down heading into the summer when it gets warmer. They just tend to do that. And we're hopeful too. I mean, they're talking about a potential vaccine could be anywhere from 6 months, record-breaking speed, to a year and a half away. So it's hard to say. But if I was an event producer with a large event in the first 6 months of 2020, I would be looking at either canceling it or rescheduling it right away.
And so, Mike, just going back to your entrepreneurial journey, and we talked about this in our intro call, is about you've had another major pivot. You describe it as the collapse of the nightlife industry. When that was your whole entire business model was based on that. Obviously, we're going to have another follow-up interview in like 12 months so we can see where you've pivoted. I'm totally curious. But for right now, what are you doing in this little mini crisis that, like you said, for some there's crises and for others there's massive opportunity, and whether there's whether it's a pandemic or a financial crisis or whatever the crisis is, how does that affect your day-to-day operations? What do you do? What do you do when something external is happening?
When I went through my first round of restructuring, that was after the sort of like 10, 12 year mark when we almost went bankrupt and we had to sell off assets. That's when we sold off Club Zone. I read a book on restructuring companies, and one of the key points that I took out of the book is that the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make is they don't cut deep enough and they don't cut fast enough. And so when you're in a downturn, what happens is you have this self-reinforcing downward spiral. Like, you lay some people off, you lose some clients, you lay more people off, and your revenue goes down. You cut your way down, and you're really trying to, the analogy, think of like a plane. It's coming, it's crashing. You got to pull it up, and then it starts to go again. And when you do it wrong, you have like this long, slow ramp. So not cutting deep enough, fast enough. And that was a big learning experience for me. In hindsight, I went back. It was sort of a 2-3 year transition where we did rounds and rounds and rounds. And man, if I just ripped off the Band-Aid at the beginning, I could have been back up within 3 months. So
right.
That's sort of the approach that we're taking right now. There's a huge human element to that with layoffs and having teams that are committed to you. That's extremely painful to go through, but there's definitely big rounds of layoffs. And we're doing things like we're trying to push people to other companies temporarily where we can hopefully bring them back again, because I think we'll be rehiring like crazy in September, October once this thing is passed. So yeah, cutting deep, cutting fast, and pivoting. Those are the two things. So we're trying to find, as we pivot, like we have for example, one of the 4 divisions is a marketing agency. Instead of going after event producers, we're going after businesses that we think are virus proof and highly synergistic with that. So that's why we've targeted alcohol. A lot of our events, they need alcohol sponsors. And so having a close relationship with alcohol companies could be handy. One of the alcohol's main marketing strategies is event marketing. So going into that space, I think people that are locked in quarantine are going to be drinking more. So yeah, we're going to start targeting some micro breweries and things like that. A lot of our festival clients have close relationships, and we've coordinated on the corporate sponsorship deal. We've worked with a lot of these alcohol companies before. We understand their demographic, their customer base very well, just from years of being in nightlife. So that's an example of how we're looking to pivot that. And on the web development and graphic design side, it's just, instead of targeting event-based businesses, it's just adjusting our lead generation process to hit other industries. So.
Gotcha. And you mentioned cannabis as well. I got to just throw that in there because it's kind of an emerging sector. Do you see opportunity there?
Yeah. We have quite a bit of experience there. So about 3 years ago, we helped a company called greenrush.com get started. It's an on-demand cannabis delivery platform. It's still online to this day. They had a bit of a setback with the financial collapse. The financial markets collapsed for the cannabis industry about a year ago. So they're in the middle of some restructuring. But it was a wild ride with Green Rush, and we learned a lot about the industry, a lot of technology and marketing experience in that space. It's very challenging for cannabis companies to market themselves due to all the
Yeah.
regulations. So the keyword there is circumvention, is finding your way around, the
Right.
loophole, and that takes creative thinking. So you can't go A to B in marketing world. Like a normal company is like, you buy your Google ads, you drive it to your website. You buy your Facebook ads,
Yeah.
you drive it to your website. In cannabis world, it's like A to B to C. C is you, and B is the intermediary that allows you to circumvent the rules from A. So
Yeah.
that is the general strategy there. And one example of something we're working on for a client in this space is there's a new game, an iOS game called Hazy Days. It's just in beta right now in Canada. And it's think of Clash of Clans meets Farmville meets Narcos.
I don't know Narcos, but
Well, like think of Clash of Clans.
I don't. You know what? I'm not a gamer, but I know
Okay.
Farmville. I know Farmville for
Okay,
sure.
so think of Farmville but weed. Okay.
Okay, cool.
And so you can advertise these games online. So if you're, say, a company like Weed Maps, you can't go to Google and say, come to Weed Maps and buy weed off of our, customers, our dispensaries. But you can promote the game. The game can be that intermediary step. And what we're doing, we're building technology so that the game will track which cannabis company has sent the traffic to the game. And then within the game, we're changing up the branding elements. So if Weed Map sends over 100,000 app installs of this role-playing, this multiplayer game, then they'll have tons of exposure opportunities within the game. They can build branding. And so we can go out there and buy Google ads on behalf of a cannabis company. We can buy Facebook ads. We can give them the branding impressions, build the relationships with the customer, even do a profit share from the in-game upsell. So that's an example of like an A to B to C strategies. We work with them to promote a game. The game promotes them. They can't go direct. So
Right.
there's a lot we had to learn about even just skirting the rules with Google and Facebook. But after a couple of years of doing that, I think we have some good strategies there.
Yeah, excellent. And I have so you're based in BC, you're in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Hey, Specky, born and raised. What is unique about where you live? Why do you love where you live? Oh, other than clearly, I'm sitting in my office, not with my view. But yeah, that's a pretty good reason. A beautiful sunny day today.
That's downtown Vancouver.
That's pretty cool. And why Vancouver?
I mean, born and raised, and I just love the mountains. It's tough. It's tough leaving a city. I'm not totally permanently attached to Vancouver. I actually don't feel like I found my home yet. I have spent some time traveling, and Maui feels like I probably will settle there at some point. I just love skiing and I love diving, but I also love my friends in the city and staying close to family. So I think the ideal end goal, if I can battle my way through this coronavirus collapse, is a condo in Vancouver, a place in Whistler, a place in Maui, and but I've got a kid in school now who kind of, you have to watch out for that. So I think I'm locked here for a while. But yeah, I'm born and raised, and I've lived all around Vancouver, and it's just a beautiful city. I love just being outdoors, like hiking in summer, skiing in winter, and quick flights to lots of cool places from here.
Well, and if you could send out a message to global listeners listening that about doing business in Canada, why here? What should be our business attraction lure?
Oh man, I'm probably not good for that. So you're promoting business in Canada? I am. You might have to cut this out of the podcast. I'm a big like, we have. You can't see the pins on the map behind me because they're red. But we have people in, I can't even keep track now. I think there's 15 countries around the world. I'm big on like, we work in a results-oriented work environment, remote. It's remote, asynchronous, distributed. We're actually trying to come up with our own branded keyword for our work environment called RAD. And just what it means is we hire the best people from anywhere in the world, and we plug them into a work environment where we can't tell the difference. Like, we've got there's about 13, 15 people here in Vancouver, but I can't tell the difference of working with somebody who's in Gastown or somebody who's in Croatia.
Right.
So if I can find somebody who's better and more affordable somewhere else in the world, why would I hire locally? So we do have maybe 15, 20 employees in Canada, and then the rest of them are scattered all across the world. So why supporting business in Canada? I mean, I think we're all, we're all connected. We're all the same everywhere in the world. There's amazing people out there. I think for me, Canada it's a lifestyle thing. It's a political safety thing. Like I'm not a fan of what's going on south of the border in terms of politics. I like sort of the open multiculturalism of Canadian society. I love the sort of more authentic, apologetic, outdoors beer drinking culture. I mean, I was just born and raised that way. So for me, Canada is a cultural, personal lifestyle choice, I guess, maybe even a political one. But in terms of business, I think there's a lot of challenges in Canada. And I think Canadian businesses really need to embrace globalization to find affordable talent. It's very hard finding senior developers in Canada, especially now with Amazon opening up and Facebook and all these big companies are just gobbling up the remaining tech talent. So you try and find a senior PHP developer in Vancouver, like good luck. You're fighting with Amazon for that person right now. So yeah. I think to thrive in Canada, you really need to open yourself up to remote work.
Absolutely. And that's a great trend. There was something you talked about, Rad, but I remember in our intro call, you talked about a particular book that you read that was a game changer.
Yeah, so it started with the TED Talk. It was the Dan Pink and the Science of Motivation. And then I started to understand that there's a lot better ways of running your business. Then I read the book, is Why Work Sucks and What You Can Do About It. It was the consultants that took Best Buy to a results-oriented work environment. Most businesses, they run on an operating system. The two most common ones that I know of, one's called EOS from the book Traction on Demand. That's a lot of people in EO, entrepreneur organization, are using that one. And then the one that we're on is from, it's called The Rockefeller Habits. It's from Vern Harnish and his latest book, Scaling Up. And we've worked with some of their coaches to set that infrastructure. Well, we've taken the infrastructure from Rockefeller Habits, and after 12 years of iteration, we've just made it remote and made it global. So yeah, we've just taken an existing system and modified it.
Well, and of your workforce, your particular crew, what's the percentage of your crew that are remote?
So, I mean, we have 3 actual physical offices, one in Zagreb, one in Bosnia and Herzegovina, one in Gastown. We've had offices in Argentina temporarily. We have quite a few shared workspaces. Like I had a space here in Burnaby at Regis for a while that we were using. We've got another one out near Kitsilano called Sweet Genius that some of our team uses. So we let people choose. Either they can work from home, they can go to one of our offices, or they can get a Regis or a WeWork or what have you. It's really up to them. The point is that we let them decide what works best for them. So some people have like a great little spare bedroom and they love where they live and they want to work from home. Great. Other people like, oh my God, I like have kids, like no. And we get them a Regis or WeWork. So, and then those that do work from, like, we have a pretty big office in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia. There might be like 20 desks or 12 desks there and 25 people, but they just sort of come a couple of days a week for social media. One thing that's been helpful here in Vancouver is we actually meet up once a week in person up until now. Now we're going to stop doing that for social distancing reasons. But yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge in the remote work environment, is how to maintain those close social connections when you're distant. And there's lots of little tricks we do there.
Absolutely. Mike, it has been a pleasure. We're getting to the end. How can people follow up with you after this podcast? What's the best solution? And maybe do we need to wait 3 months or?
No, I mean, I've never been so hungry for business. So if you need a smart digital marketing agency, if you need help with software development, even if you're an event business that's looking to make a rapid transition to survive this coronavirus, reach out to me. How to get a hold of me? Just email mike@myzone.com. You can see us online, myzone.com. It's funny, I grew up on social media and I've been really active on it, but I don't, in the last 2 years, I don't read anything on social. So I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Facebook. We run social media marketing, but I'm just so burnt out. It's like, at the end of the day, I don't want anything to do with that. So yeah, best is just to hit me up on email, mike@myzone.com.
Awesome. And any last sound bites of information or insights for the future that you'd love to leave with our audience?
It's cliche, but love what you do and it doesn't feel like work. I've been working
It's so
60,
true.
70 hours a week for the last 20 years. And people are like, how do you do it? How do you ride this out? I'm like, I love what I do. So
Yeah.
if you're thinking about starting up a business, just like pick what you're passionate about and dive in. Stay humble, keep learning. Don't develop an ego. You know, I've been at this for 20 plus years now, and every year I feel like my knowledge improves like 30 to 50%. I will look at myself today, 5 years from now, and go, man, that guy was an idiot. And as long as you keep realizing that, you will succeed. And don't give up. Just keep going and you'll never stop.
Awesome.
When
Mike, it's been a pleasure. I love your energy. I love your energy. I'm going to keep tabs on what Joe Rogan has to say and on My Zone. I look forward to connect with you again.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Go team.